If you hear the dogs, keep going. If you see the torches in the woods, keep going. If they're shouting after you, keep going. Don't ever stop. If you want a taste of freedom, keep going. It's Harriet Tubman. The Hanging Tree.
Welcome to the Harriet Tubman Cultural Center. It's a work in progress. It was started in March the 10th, 2010. Started downtown. I was downtown for about 6 years. Then I went up on High Street. I've been here since November of 2017. We like it. It's a work in progress, and it kind of gives us our own little entity right here. There's several pictures of here. Here's a picture of her, more stern picture of Harriet. And Harriet, as you can see, she has a scar on her head, which came from when she was a little girl, when she was in Bucktown, Maryland. She got involved in an altercation of a slave master and his runaway slave. He asked her to help him, and she didn't want to do it, but she got in the way. He got angry, picked up an iron weight about the size of this, hit her through it.
Oh my goodness.
And hit her in the head. She was in a coma for about 3 months. She also had epilepsy from that. And so that's one of the pictures of here. She's a lady that had a lot of values, a lot of real, true grit in her life. And here's a picture of her as a younger lady, and she's about 40 years old, attractive black lady. So we put that there. That's also in the Smithsonian Institute, a picture of her, because most people don't never see her like that. And so, but Harriet Tubman had some values that came from her legacy and her heritage. And simple things that people take for granted, just like cursive is almost a lost art nowadays. Kids don't even know how to do that. But some of the common values like be thankful, live simply, be kind, do your best, use please and thank you, cherish family and friends, never give up, believe in yourself, listen with your heart. Because back then they couldn't read and write, it was against the law. And so her main thread was to help others. And she never forgot about that. And so she did that, and she knew how to read people. So those are some of the core values of her. And I don't know if you know this, Jason, but Harriet is a candidate. It's already been passed and everything. We hope the current administration will honor it, where she's scheduled to be put on the $20 bill.
Oh yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
It is awesome. And Andy Jackson, if you know anything about him, he's on it now. And he would simply go to the back and she would go to the front. But it wasn't like her people just went and got off and got on the boat. No, there was some rebellion. They resisted in that, but most of them were broken at will to be enslaved, to be able to be fit in the slave ship like this here. And here's another picture of one of the ships in terms of they're coming. Now, here represents the timeline of Harriet. And if we see these pictures up here, this is the tribe that she comes from in Ghana, West Africa. They're known as the Ashanti Tribe. And they live basically in Kumasi. They're all over the world. But they're known for the brilliancy of their cloth making, called the kente cloth. And here's a real kente cloth right here. You can feel the texture of it. It's real kente cloth. And here's the difference. This is a Kinty print. So that's the real McCoy you got in your hand there, and that's a print.
This is a print.
That's a print. It's a big, vast difference.
Oh yeah, you can tell the difference.
Yeah. Africans are not innocent when it comes to the Mid-Atlantic trade, slave trade. They did not, they participated in it by selling slaves to the Europeans, who took it to a total different level. Africans sold Africans, or they sold my ancestors into slavery. And the first slave owner in America was an African American by the name of Anthony Johnson. That's a fact.
Wow.
Anthony Johnson. And so this is a lot where black rage comes from, but it's the truth. So if you're gonna tell the story, you gotta tell the whole thing. Slavery is nothing new. It's been around. It was done by the Arabs, and so it's been around for quite some time. Now, this is a timeline here, and there's a whole lot in here. I won't go into it all, but I'll pick out this paragraph right here. Harriet Tubman was born about 29 years earlier in Dorchester County, the Buckingham Plantation of Edward Broadus in 1745. Her grandparents were brought shackled from the Ashanti Nation in Africa. That's them up there. For 4 centuries, the Ashanti Nation fought off British invasions on the west coast of Africa, resisting bondage until 1896, when England colonized the land. The Ashanti courage became a legend in the United States, continuing early on into Tubman's sense of rebellion. So that's her legacy, that's her people there about Miss Tubman. Now, Harriet was born in 1820. She died in 1913. The significant things about her timeline. Number one, the Underground Railroad from 1850 to 1860. During that time period, the abolitionists, the fugitive slaves, they literally dismantled the evil institution of slavery. Now, how could they do that back then? Because they were committed, they were dedicated, and it was just wrong, and they worked hard. So freedom fighters have been unique throughout our human history to help to achieve. Mandela was another one. And as you know, on Monday will be universally celebrated around the world, Martin Luther King Day. In 1849, she gained her personal freedom. She felt that she had to free herself before she could help free others, and she did that. But when she did that, she was never content with her freedom, and she sought to go back and help others, and she started with her own family and doing that. When the war broke out in 1860, when the Emancipation Proclamation, she was very involved. She was involved as a nurse. She was involved as a cook, and she was involved as a spy. And later on, she became a stateswoman who worked with women such as Susan B. Anthony in terms of women's suffrage. So she has just a very unique timeline. She was married. She married John Tubman here in 1844, and she loved that man. And he never did want to leave. He was a free man, and he told her to stop talking like that, or he'd tell on her, but she couldn't resist, and she kept on till she got her own personal freedom. And when she left, the first person she went back to go get was him, but he was living with another woman that remarried. And to her heart's dismay, she committed and devoted herself to the Underground Railroad. She remarried again in 1869 to a guy named Nelson Davis, but she kept her name of Tubman because she loved that man so much. And I told you about the Cambridge 28, which was the largest group of enslaved men, women, and children that escaped from slavery to freedom. Wow. And so that's a powerful gesture of meeting your rendezvous with destiny. That's John Brown, who also was a person who felt he had a revelation from God to single-handedly raise up an army to defeat the slaveholders and owners, but that came to a real feisty end at Harper's Ferry,
Right.
Virginia. Up here is where the captain, his headquarters, captain's quarters. This was the shipmates, and then down here is where the slaves were. Now, when we look at this being shaped, you see there's the African chiefs, and then you see the slave ships. It took 4 months for the slave ships to get to the slave castles to pick up the slaves, where they were processed and broken at will to be able to fit in the cargo like that. And so you got all these combinations working together to shape that whole Mid-Atlantic trans journey. And then you have what is called the slave castle. That's the Elmina Slave Castle. It was built in 1482. And the Elmina Slave Castle is a piece of history in itself. It is a tourist center today. People can actually go there and they can tour it, and you can see it, what this thing was like. It's a big, massive place where humans were just broken at will.
Wow, so it's almost like a prison then.
Yes, it was.
Say.
That's what it was. That's why it was dungeons. This was the death penalty in case you resisted, and this is the female dungeon as well, which led right up over the governor's bedroom door, and he had him up a fresh winch every evening. This here is a manual. I'm in the process of getting this here. It's old. I need to really get it preserved more. Of a journal, of a slave captain's journal off the coast of West Africa. It was published and written in 1820.
Wow.
It has the receipt in it. It has the receipt in it of when it was purchased, and it's just an old document, so old it's falling apart. I have to get it preserved. But there's all kind of stories in here. There's a map in here too of his journeys. There's one story in here that's told of a captain who took, they would take the slaves from the bottom to bring them up on the deck. And one of the slaves happened to step on the captain's foot and enraged the captain, and they would take him up in lots of tin, and he was so enraged he took them tin and threw them over the boat and watched the sharks eat him up. Well, he got so turned on by that he did it again and again and again and again. And before you knew it, he'd have murdered, literally massacred hundreds of slaves. But when the ship got to the port masters came out and they said, well, where's our cargo? They said, well, we had an uprising. They said, well, we're taking you to court. They took him to court, and they won, and they sued him, not because they had murdered hundreds of slaves, but because they had lost the cargo. Did Harriet Tubman come through here? No, she didn't, but the Underground Railroad did. And the whole slave scenario was about this here. It was about cash. It was about cash. That's what it was about. Because cotton was king, and that's what they were brought here for, was to pick that cotton. And not only the cotton were they to pick. You see what that is? That's sugar.
Sugar, yeah.
That. These are
rice.
all, that's right. These are all cash crops. See that?
Yeah, free labor, so.
That's right. That's cotton. And then this one here, which is basically up in the Richmond area, that's tobacco.
Oh, yeah.
Tobacco. It was all at the expense of the family. These are all factors that work together to help to shape that whole industry. When most people present it, they just present certain segments of it. They don't present the whole thing. But these were combinations. The African chiefs, the European slave traders, the ships, which were country like the Virginia Company of London, the slave castles, and the plantation. And they all worked together to be able to help to promote that industry. America's original sin is that America was established as a white society upon the near genocide of one race and the enslavement, kidnapping of another. These are the combinations that work to help to prepare the way for a Harriet Tubman. Because not all, I won't stand here and say all of the plantation owners were evil. It was that 20% that was sadistic, evil, brutal, wicked. And that is why Harriet Tubman came in the picture, by the grace of God, to help those who wanted to escape, to meet their rendezvous with destiny, to be able to do as such. She never came through here, but the Underground Railroad did. And as you saw outside, the auction block was real. And if you were able to get away from there, you wasn't like you drove up here. You were out in the infrastructure of no man's land, trying to get to where you were going. This is a true story here of Rocket M. John, who was he and his three brothers were born on a plantation here in the Shenandoah Valley. The Shenandoah Valley was the agricultural breadbasket for the Civil War. And it fed a lot of people. And there was plantations all over the Shenandoah Valley, some right even in this area here. The Robert Gray Estate at Lucy Sims was one of them. But those three brothers escaped, and as they escaped, they were being pursued by slave catchers, and they had to go inside of a cave. And in the cave was a bear. And the bear woke up, and they had to fight with the bear. And the younger brother, Benjamin, was killed. But it was a blessing in disguise because it provided clothing for them, and also food. And that's a true story of Rocket M. John here. Here's some information about it here. Rocket M. John. His great-grandson came here, and he told the story about that story. And, as I said, the main thing was to be able to escape from the plantation, from those that had the desire, and they did that by a network of houses called safe houses, to help them escape. Now, the Underground Railroad was a combination of men, women, abolitionists, free slaves, working together to help to get them from one place to the next place. And as you can see, when Harriet Tubman came on the scene, Harriet Tubman she first started with freeing herself, and then she went back to help others. She did it over 300 times. I said that wrong. She did it over 20 times, including herself, and hundreds of men and women were part of her tours to freedom. Now, those that were able to do safe houses and break the chains of freedom, of bondage to freedom, that was their plight right there. They were on the run, and on the run they were. And it wasn't like they were just, just had road maps to know where they were going. They were literally wading through snake-infested waters and mosquitoes. It was just horrible, but they made it. And when you look at this right here, this is the big picture. Now, the big picture represents some of the terrain, what they had to go over. Mountains, through woods, through the water, literally wade in the water. And then you see a close-up view of Harriet Tubman leading one of her groups. She's focused. She's a master in the art of network. She has a keen sense of destination. Yes, she carried a gun, and there was times where some of the men and women would say, "Miss Tubman, we's tired. We can't make it no more. We's got to go back. We wants to end." And she would turn around and point that gun and say, "I'm sorry, but your journey is going to end right here." And they'll say, "Miss Tubman, we sorry. We all of a sudden got enough energy now that we can make it on the journey." But she didn't play around. Her main goal was to get you to the sweet land of liberty. And she did that. She did it well. That's why she's the most famous of all the conductors. A woman who couldn't read or write, who was illiterate, but was wise and full of wit and wisdom. She knew her journey. And here she is with this guy here who represents, he's got her back. He represents manhood, fatherhood. But what I like about it is they're lifting up the next generation. And that's what time it is. And tomorrow is about uplifting and empowering the next generation so that they can know that the journey that they are on is not one that should be taken for granted. That there was a debt paid, there was sacrifices paid to get them to where they are. Young people today, as I said, a lot of this is lost. They don't know. But we have to be committed and dedicated to uphold them so that they can know the journey. She represents motherhood and womanhood. And then when you see right here, the story is self-explanatory. Yes, we are a brother's keeper. And the brother can't make it by himself. He's hurt. And we have to help each one to make the journey, to meet the rendezvous with destiny. Now, as for Harriet, there was a price that she had to pay to do that. Because number one, there was a price tag over her head, $40,000. Now, I was born, Jason, in 1953. Okay? That was the annual income of a family in 1943.
Wow.
$4,000.
Just imagine what it is.
That's equivalent to millions of dollars today.
Yeah, exactly.
The average income for a family in 1953 was $4,000, $4,100. And so they wanted this woman dead or alive because she was a threat to the economic security of the southern plantation. That was the thriving engine. And so when Harriet Tubman, even though she couldn't read or write, she knew what she was doing, because when she helped slaves to escape, to meet their rendezvous with destiny, that was economic freedom running down the road at the expense of possibly being hung, killed, lamed, burnt, murdered, locked up, chained up. It happened. Look at this right here, Jason, to show you how bad and how wicked humanity had come. Read this here. These are postcards, by the way. Read that right there.
It says, the postcard front and back, the lynching of Jesse Washington, May 16th, 1916, Robinson, Texas. The person sending the postcard writes, "This is the barbecue we had last night. Your son, Joe."
Now, how in the world could you do something like that to another human being? Lest we forget, I had a man come in here one time. He said, "Mr. Macklin, you're right. This is a work of progress. But could you please just take this part down?" I said, "Sir, I can't. It's history. The truth is the truth." As painful as it is, as hideous as it looks, it's the truth. Have we made progress? Yes, we've made progress. Have we come a long way? Yes, we've come a long way. But is there work still to be done? Of course, there's work to be done. It was just last year in Charlottesville where it was descended upon by white supremacists and nationalists. So this is real. Here's in Seattle, Washington, the lynching of a young black boy. He was hung just last year. This is the lynchings that took place in rural Maryland. Here's the lynching that took place, overkill here in this area here, of the overkill of Slave Will. They burnt him, they cut his head off, put it on a spike, put it up here on Cross Keys Road, and burnt his body. So, I mean, the history is here. And so you take institutions that are committed and dedicated to making a difference. We have to work together to preserve history, to truthfully convey history, and not allow ourselves to get history and heritage mixed up with hatred. And so the Harriet Tubman Center here is committed to preserving the legacy of Harriet Tubman. We do that through research and advocacy, and we provide cultural learning tours on and off site to be able to help people understand this era of time.
How do you feel about our past that you've seen here today? How do we together cross the rivers of racism, prejudice, and discrimination?